Hello, my name is Sahil Malik. I'm a trainer and consultant and I love Angular. I deliver trainings on Angular regularly and you can find my email address right here. Here's another video making yet another Angular concept easy and simple to understand. As always, I look forward to your feedback. Thank you for watching. All right, let's talk about another interesting topic, which is Angular data binding. So I'm going to start with a very simple application. And I've been talking about data binding concepts such as input, output, etc. already. So check out my other videos that I've talked about components, and we've already been talking about some level of data binding already. And this very simple application has got an app component which loads a bunch of friends using this, and that's the selector, and it gets friends using a get call. The data is over here. So it's a fairly complicated JSON file. Basically, it lets me represent different situations. Basically, the business object that I care about is this. That's basically what a friend turns out to be. And then as I get these friends, I data bind them, and I'm just running them in an ng-for, and they are being rendered by this friend component input. And you see here, that's the input, and the rendering right now is very simple. The only kind of data binding I'm using here is interpolation. So it's very simple right now. Let's see what else we can do. So I'm going to basically start making some interesting changes here. Let's start with the in friend component.html. So let's go ahead and close the other files, close others. Here we go. And let's see what are the various things we can do. So if I look at the data for friend, let's check this out again. Let's actually look at the business object. And one of the things I see is that the friend has got a gender, which is a string. It's typically a male or a female. So the question is it possible for us to change the CSS class of the friend component? See, right now when this renders, it renders pretty plain vanilla. And right now when it renders, can I change the CSS class of it based on gender? Yeah, it's pretty easy. Let's try it. So I'm going to say right click, new file, and I'm going to say friend component.css, and I'm going to go ahead and create a couple of CSS classes in here, male and female. And inside of here, I will go ahead and say, let's put this in a span, and let's put that in a span too. And I'm going to say ng class. So this is a new directive we're learning here, ng class. And I'm going to say this is friend.gender. Okay. And when I come back here and hit refresh, well, it doesn't reflect it because I haven't referenced that CSS. It just doesn't automatically pick it up. Because if I have to go, basically what I have to do in the friend component.typescript, I have to tell it to load a particular CSS file. And this is a very important concept because the CSS that gets generated is unique to the component. It doesn't interfere with the rest of the page. So now that I've included it, now I reference it, and you see that it is referencing this style. Could be better, this new line, etc., because I have it in a pre-tag. So let's quickly fix that. I'll go here. And let's go ahead and like that and hit refresh, and it should fix it. Now what I was saying earlier is that if I hit F12 here and I basically try and hover over this particular element, the friend tag, what I wanted to show you is that the class female, but then it says ng reflect ng class female. So all instances of the friend component, they are sharing the same class, but they're not polluting rest of the page, right? So that is a new directive we learned called ng class. Now let's come back here to our code and let's see what else we can do here. So another thing is, for instance, okay, ng class is fine. I have the ability to calculate the class based on a property, and this could have been a method as well. But the thing is, can I set, using data binding, this sort of syntax here. So if I go to friends component, sorry, HTML, using this syntax here, can I set more complex properties? Like this is just friend, But what if it was a more complex object and I wanted to set a particular property on that complex object? An example of that could be, let's say, the style tag. And for instance, if you look in the data here, there's a property here called isActive, and we want to be able to say that style.color is red or blue depending upon if friend is active or not, right? So it's very easy to do. Basically, you can data bind to more complex properties like this. So you come down here and you see that now I'm using a complex data binding syntax, and that allows me to data bind to more complex properties. And if I come here, I'm going to hit F5, and you see here that it is setting the background color appropriately, and it is set based on style.color. So I can style.font and so on and so forth. So I can data bind directly to one property of a more complex object, right? So that's another way. Okay, let's take this further. Let's quickly talk about one-way data binding and two-way data binding. Let's say that, for instance, I want to create a checkbox, and that checkbox, when I check it, it should, make a friend active or inactive. So basically this property here, we're toggling that. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to go ahead and create a method in friend component.ts, and we're going to call this method active checkbox, and we'll write the code for it in a second. And basically all we want to do in this is that we want to toggle the friend's active or inactive status. That's what we're doing. Okay, so that's cool. How can we call this using one-way data binding? So one-way data binding is quite simple. Basically what I want to be able to do, let's go to the HTML now. So what I want to be able to do is that I want to first show the user's inactive status using like the checked property of a checkbox. And then I also want to bind the click event, and it should call the active checkbox method that I just added. And that can be done like this. So basically input type checkbox and data binding using this checked method. So basically if friend is active is true, then it'll be checked, otherwise not. And the click event is basically, sending in the event, and it calls the active checkbox method. So again, if I come down here, I'm going to refresh, I see these checkboxes. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that. You see that isActive is changing. And the cool thing is that the same thing can be done using two-way data binding also. So if you see here, what's happening here is that we want to show the value of isActive in the checkbox, and yet we want to be able to change it, as we, check or uncheck the checkbox. And this two-way data binding syntax, this two one-way data bindings rather, can be quite wordy. So basically they give us another directive called as ngModel. And this code here, two-way data binding code here, which is really two one-way data bindings underneath, this and this are exactly the same. This is just less wordy, easier for us to type. Now the reason they have done that, you see that if I now run the application, it's basically reacting everywhere. But the reason they've done this is because classically, making two-way data binding default and making it like a black box as it was there in AngularJS, Angular 1, it was problematic, especially you ended up creating circular references and performance became a problem, etc., compilation, etc. So they're trying to avoid those problems by not making it a black box, by letting you explicitly say, hey, this is something that I really want to be two-way data binding. And then you know exactly what's going on in there, so that way you don't end up creating circular loops, etc. So that is a high-level view of data binding in Angular. I'll see you in the next video.